Okay, so picture this. Deep in modern-day Pakistan, you've got the ruins of this absolutely massive city, one of the greatest urban centers of the entire Bronze Age. For thousands of years, its story was just gone, lost to time, buried under the sand. Today, we're going to dig into the incredible mysteries of Harappa.
I mean, how does that even happen? How does a whole civilization, a real powerhouse at the absolute peak of its game, just vanish? Harappa was the beating heart of the huge Indus Valley Civilization, but around 1900 BC, something started to go wrong. A long decline began that ended with the city being totally abandoned and forgotten. The question is, why?
And the story of how we found it again? Honestly, it's almost as shocking as how it disappeared in the first place. For centuries, people saw these giant mounds of earth, but just dismissed them. Nobody had a clue what was buried right underneath their feet.
You're not going to believe the tragic irony here. In 1857, British engineers were building a railway and they needed track ballast, the gravel that supports the tracks. So they plundered the site, taking these ancient, perfectly made bricks and just crushing them. They were literally grinding up a lost civilization for construction material before anyone even knew what it was.
So yeah, a lot was lost. But thankfully, not everything. Archaeologists eventually got in there, and what they started to find, well, it pointed to a society that was incredibly sophisticated, way ahead of its time.
At its height, we think the city was home to around 23,500 people. To put that in perspective, that's larger than a lot of towns today. For the Bronze Age, this wasn't just a big village, it was a sprawling, thriving metropolis.
And it had the space to match. During its peak, the city covered a whopping 150 hectares. We're talking about 370 acres. And this wasn't some chaotic, messy sprawl either. This was a massive, deliberately planned urban center.
Just try to imagine walking through these streets 4,000 years ago. You would have seen a planned grid, houses made of brick with flat roofs, and get this, advanced city-wide drainage systems. I mean, they had standardized weights and measures for trade, they were weaving and dyeing cotton, mass-producing pottery on wheels. These aren't just random accomplishments. These are the signs of a truly modern, organized society.
So what does all this add up to? It tells us this was a real urban culture. This wasn't just a big village where everyone farmed. It was a proper city, It was fueled by extra food from farms and a booming trade network, which allowed for a complex economy and a really high standard of living.
But here's the thing. Harappa wasn't just doing its own thing in isolation. Not at all. It was a major player in what was basically an ancient global economy. The connections they had were just mind-blowing for that time.
Think about their marketplace. They were shipping out high-demand stuff like cotton fabrics and all sorts of agricultural goods. And what were they bringing in? All sorts of luxury items and raw materials, gorgeous stones like carnelian and lapis lazuli, plus precious metals like gold and copper.
And their reach was just staggering. We're talking trade routes that stretched for thousands of miles. They were connected to the other great civilizations of the time, like in Mesopotamia and maybe even all the way to Egypt. Plus, the Persian Gulf and southern India were huge partners.
Okay, so this brings us back to that huge mystery. If they were so successful, so advanced, so well-connected, why did it all fall apart? It's one of history's great cold cases.
I mean, this wasn't some flash in the pan. The civilization was around for almost 2,000 years. Their big cities really took off around 2600 BC. But then, around 1900 BC, things started to go downhill. It was a slow, gradual decline that lasted for centuries, until, poof, they were gone.
So, what happened? For a long time, everyone thought they were wiped out by invaders. It's a dramatic story, right? A powerful empire destroyed by conquerors. But is that what the evidence actually shows?
Turns out, no. Modern archaeology has found zero evidence of some big invasion or a massive war. Instead, all the clues point to something much slower, and maybe even scarier: natural causes. The leading theory today is climate change, a long, slow shift in the climate that caused the rivers they depended on to just dry up.
And you can see the human cost of this disaster, literally written in their bones. When scientists looked at skeletons from the later periods, they found a shocking increase in injuries, probably from violence, and a huge spike in infectious diseases like leprosy and tuberculosis. This wasn't a single battle. This was a society under immense stress, breaking down from the inside as resources disappeared.
So we have a pretty good idea of how they lived and how they declined.
But the Harappans left behind one last puzzle for us, and this one, it's the biggest mystery of all.
You see, among all the usual stuff, the pots, the tools, archaeologists kept finding these other things, these little artifacts that were just beautiful, but also completely baffling.
What are they? They're small, square seals carved out of soapstone, hundreds of them, and each one is engraved with these incredible animal figures. Bulls, elephants, rhinos, you name it. And something else, a mysterious script.
This is the Indus script, and it's one of the greatest unsolved codes on the planet. For more than 100 years, the best code breakers and linguists have thrown everything they have at it. And nothing. The symbols have held on to their secrets. We have no idea what they say or even what kind of language they represent.
And listen to this quote from Dr. Richard Meadow, the lead archaeologist at Harappa. He says, "It is a big question as to if we can call what we have found true writing." Think about that. After all this time, the experts are still debating if it's even a proper written language or something else entirely. And that leaves us right here with this enormous question. If we could ever read these seals, what would they tell us? Would we finally learn about their kings, their gods, their myths, their history? The entire story of the Harappan civilization has been written down, but for now, it's in a language that no one on Earth can read.